It is the same thing which makes us mad or delirious, inspires us with dread and fear, whether by night or by day, brings sleeplessness, inopportune mistakes, aimless anxieties, absent-mindedness, and acts that are contrary to habit.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Illuminated Self, the first in our series of occasional lectures. Today we will consider the disease called sacred.
It is not, in my opinion, any more divine or more sacred than any other disease, but has a natural cause, and its supposed divine origin is due to men's inexperience and to their wonder at its peculiar character.
In 400 BCE, this turn from the supernatural to the naturalistic explanation, what Hippocrates described as the flux of phlegm flowing from the brain into the veins, is now considered a major shift in the history of medicine. However, it can be argued that we are as far from a universal understanding of what to call it.
Condition, complaint, disorder, defect, disease, affliction, ailment, weakness, infirmity, indisposition, malaise, malady. Peter Marc Roger, lexicographer and, interestingly, also a physician.
Diseases exist to remind us that we are not made of wood. And it seems to me this is the bright side of it all. Vincent van Gogh.
I remember the first time I saw a Van Gogh painting. I mean, really saw a Van Gogh painting. I stood in front of it and I wondered about him, about his life, about his painting, about his anxiety, synesthesia and depression, about how it came together in brilliant colour on a piece of canvas. When my son was first diagnosed, I searched for famous people who had it. The first name I noticed was his, Vincent.
The brain within its groove runs evenly and true. But let a splinter swerve. 'Twere easier for you to put the water back when floods have slit the hills and scooped a turnpike for themselves and blotted out the mills. Emily Dickinson.
Seizure, capture, conquest, occupation, takeover, annexation, invasion, subjugation, subjection, colonization.
For example, Napoleon's seizure of Spain. The question of whether the emperor was a sufferer or not has always been a matter of controversy. Opponents of the theory argue that none of the many doctors who attended him ever mentioned it. Those in favour reply that such doctors would need to be very careful about how they worded any diagnosis when it came to their imperial patient.
I am sometimes...
No, we're not going to do that.
I thought we were going to do that.
No, it's not going to work.
I am sometimes a fox and sometimes a lion. I can no longer obey. I have tasted command and I cannot give it up.
See, it's not. There was an old man who, when little, fell casually into a kettle, but growing too stout, he could never get out, so he passed all his life in that kettle.
Edward Lear, painter and limerician, kept a diary for 40 years, but never mentioned what he called his heart-stopping and brain-twisting incidents. He merely placed the letter X on days on which they occurred and a score of between 1 to 10 to mark their severity.
He congratulated himself, saying it was wonderful that as far as the world was concerned, his demon had never been discovered.
In Powell and Pressburger's film A Matter of Life and Death, the escalator which carries Peter,
played by David Niven,
up towards the other world is lined by large statues of historically prominent men. A list of the names of the statues appears in Michael Powell's handwriting on page 49 and 50 of his script. The statues include Alexander the Great, King Solomon, Plato, Confucius, Abraham Lincoln and Jonathan Swift.
At the time, 1945, they were all believed to have had epilepsy.
Epilepsy is like a thumbprint. Everyone is different. No two cases are alike.
For several instants, I experience a happiness that is impossible in an ordinary state, and of which other people have no conception. I feel full harmony in myself and in the whole world. And the feeling is so strong and sweet that for a few seconds of such bliss, one could give up 10 years of life, perhaps all of life. Fyodor Dostoevsky.
We're very near the end of our time together. I hope that you have been galvanized by what you have heard. And if you have, you owe it to Luigi Galvani, known as the Frog's dancing master.
Galvani, an 18th century surgeon and lecturer in anatomy, stimulated the legs of frogs to demonstrate that biological cells have electrical properties. Reports of this early research into electrical signals and patterns emitted by nerves, muscles, and the brain circulated widely, reaching the shores of Lake Geneva and the Villa Deodati, firing the imagination of a certain Mary Shelley.
I'm not strange, weird, off nor crazy. My reality is just different from yours. Charles Lutwidge Dodgson.
Lewis Carroll.
Charles Lutwidge Dodgson.
Lewis Carroll.
Who in the world am I?
Ah, that's the great puzzle.